Streaming. See what's going on here. Good evening, everybody. I'm Pat Edwards, Chair of the committee. I apologise for the cold, but we have two heaters on, but they're not making much of a dent in it, and we're waiting for a part for the heating, so sorry about that. There's no fire alarm planned for this evening. Should the alarm sound, please leave by the nearest available emergency exit. Two of the closest exits are through the glass door behind you to my left, and through the double doors on the riverside behind you. Please muster at Café des Amis. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recording of the meeting using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. I would like to remind everyone present this meeting is being minuted, recorded, filmed, and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you're seated in the public gallery, it's possible the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it's recommended you make a member of staff aware who can direct you to where to sit to avoid being filmed. Westgate Gardens on the riverside are locked, so members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind that glass door. Now, this is where did I do this? No, that's not working. This is where... Sorry, everybody. I'm using someone else's laptop for various reasons. So Pippa, are there any apologies tonight?
We have apologies from Councillors Buckman, Jones, Mackenzie and Dan Smith.
And do we have any substitutes?
Councillor Jeanette Stockley is present for Councillor Jones.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest by councillors or officers? Pippa, could you read the generic declaration first? Thank you.
All or some councillors may have received correspondence from or spoken with applicants, agents, supporters or objectors, and some of the public speakers may also be known to members of the committee due to their work as councillors. Neither circumstance prevents councillors from participating in the meeting. However, any councillor who considers that they do not have an open mind in respect of any item on the agenda should not participate in the meeting when the relevant item is to be discussed.
Are there any other declarations of interest? Councillor Stockley.
Thank you, Chair. I need to declare an other significant interest. As a family member has opposed the application on 13 High Street, Whitstable in the past, I've taken advice from legal and we've been advised to leave the meeting after item 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. The same applies to me.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There are 5 public speakers tonight who will be heard immediately after the officer's presentation for each relevant item. Number 5, application number CA 23 00044 VAR 13 High Street, Whitstable. The comedy show now. I'm going to invite Simon Thomas to present the report. I thought, sorry. Both Councillor Stockley, if you'd like to leave now, this is the right time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application which has been with us for nearly a year now, since January this year, the 13 High Street, Whitstable. It was the former employment job centre, and it was turned into a restaurant some time ago, over a year ago now. There was... Oh, sorry.
It is on.
Thank you. There was no planning permission required for the change of use, but there was permission required for the rear alterations, including the flue. So this is the restaurant that's from the High Street, Alla Turca restaurant. And this is the flue that was installed. The planning committee in January agreed this flue, but subject to particular features which reduced noise impact for the neighbouring occupiers. The applicant didn't install the features that were specified in the application. So basically, originally with the application, they said we're going to put certain things into the system. They didn't do that. They did something different. But we have, they submitted an acoustic report, which we've had checked by an independent acoustic engineer. And we believe that the effects of what they've put in there are as good as, and maybe even slightly better than the previous, what was previously proposed. So this application really is to, the request is for members to consider the grant of permission for the flue as installed. There's also another point around the colour of the flue. So at the moment it is, well, it's two colours. It's sort of grey on the top and bottom, and then silver in between. The original planning permission required it to be painted black. We can, if members would agree, then we could impose that condition again. Although my personal feeling is that the grey might be better, but certainly the original condition was that it be painted black, and that hasn't been done. So members may have a view on that. You know, if you, well, what I'll do is I'll propose that we paint it black, and then if through debate any difference, you know, anything else comes out, then we can obviously reflect that in the conditions of the planning permission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Simon. We now turn to our speakers. The first one is Mick Stewart. Please, could you come forward? You have 3 minutes to make your point. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The filtration system should be included in the building itself as per the very original plans. The flue should be built higher as per the original plans, with conditions and with proper enforcement. If we can agree, if you can agree that, we could all go home now and maybe get a bit warmer. I see that the noise report was concluded in May. It was submitted to us on the 22nd of November, a couple of weeks ago, and we were given 4 days to comment until 5 p.m. on the 29th of November. The report was published just a few working hours later. How much consideration has been given to our comments? I hear you ask. Maybe I don't, but I should. It looks like none. The residents have been shown no respect once again. It should be clear to anyone that the readings should have been taken at night from the homes of the objectors. This makes the report very inadequate. The properties in Victoria Mews are not impacted by traffic noise. This has been made clear at every stage. Traffic noise to the Victoria Mews properties is blocked by the row of shops. This makes the impact from the flue extractor much more significant. Why does no one from the council come to hear for themselves? The officer report makes no mention of the noise from the extractor during cleaning. This is an ongoing issue. The extractor itself is also often kept on all night. This must be addressed, please, by condition. The report also makes no mention of the soot being emitted from the flue. This must be addressed as well. I expect extending the flue so that it discharges into the wider area is the answer. But we have told you all this before. The problems which continue are largely as a result of the authority not enforcing the conditions which it imposed, plus poor management at the premises. The solution is simple. Impose conditions, extend the flue and limit its use to 2,200 hours each day for all purposes, including cleaning, and then enforce. I ask the committee to now correct the errors of the past, impose conditions and enforce them. We are, of course, willing to answer any questions you have, and my colleagues will now speak with a bit more detail of the impact. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second speaker is Sue Newman. If you'd like to come forward.
Do I press this? Or it's all right. Okay. According to the Noise Survey Addendum, 25th of October 2023, the ultimate aim of the recommended noise mitigation measures is to achieve, and I quote, no observed effect level, British Standard 4142, with the seasonally appropriate acronym of NOEL. However, the methodology used to test the effectiveness of the mitigation measures installed in March this year is scientifically questionable. The tests were not the same as those carried out by Peak Acoustics in 2023. They were not done at the same times or in the same places, and thus valid comparisons cannot be made. There are also inconsistencies in the results relating to ambient noise. Poor data leads to poor decision-making. Thus, there can be no justification whatsoever for the decisions you intend to make. I consider that it would be a breach of our right to a good night's sleep, which we had before Alaturka was opened, and of natural justice, if the flue system was allowed to carry on in its present configuration and operation. The only valid test is the lived experiences of those of us who, after almost 2 years exactly, are still unable to open our windows at night and be certain of a good night's sleep because of the type and level of noise emitted by the flue and extractor system. No one has had the courtesy to visit our properties at night to hear just what we have to endure. The only way to solve this public nuisance is not by more baffles, etc., which are expensive, ineffective and unsightly, especially in a conservation area, but by switching off the entire system, preferably automatically to bypass human error, say by 10 o'clock. The very noisy and intrusive washing system, which often runs well after 11 p.m, could be on between, say, 9 and 11 in the morning before customers arrive for lunch. Local management must be involved in this solution as a way forward. Failure to cooperate should lead to meaningful sanctions. It just remains for me to wish you a happy and quiet Noel. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Evelyn Tuckwood.
There you go.
Is that mine?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well done.
Ready? Okay. Having read the latest noise assessment after mitigation, I strongly disagree with their conclusion. They state that there is a low impact from the flue on neighbouring properties. We are the nearest property, and during the summer months, we have our windows open day and night. Actually, during the winter, with the windows closed, the noise from the flue is still very apparent. Our bed is directly under the windows, and the noise has not improved at all. after mitigation. Apart from the flue noise that is switched off when the restaurant closes, the hum from the cleaning cycle then follows. Also, there is no mention of odours, and more importantly, for ourselves, the charcoal residue which drifts through our open windows of our house and also onto our patio. This has only occurred since the arrival of the flue. The test was obviously done during the day when the restaurant was not busy. This is only during weekends and in good weather. I suggest that another test should be done in the evening or into the night. The noise goes on until the restaurant closes. There doesn't seem to be a definite time that it is switched off. Indeed, on Sunday night, the 30th of November, the flue was left on all night, and I had a very disturbed night, hardly sleeping at all. I must add that this experience of noise disturbance was with our windows closed. There are many other documented occasions when sleep has been disturbed. In conclusion, no matter what we are told, the facts speak for themselves. We are still plagued with noise, odour and dangerous charcoal residue. On the original plans, which were drawn up on the 6th of June 2020, the drawing to the rear of the building shows no mechanism around the flue. It was assumed that all the filtration system would have been built inside the building, as it should be, and not just plonked on the roof, but all to see and hear. We have now been presented with this eyesore in supposedly a conservation area. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And our next speaker is Councillor Claire Turnbull, speaking as the ward councillor.
Sorry, I just turned it off. Good evening. So yet again, this applicant has ignored the stipulations of the Planning Committee and carried out their work as suits them rather than those around them. As the report before you indicates, mitigation measures were clearly set out last January. These measures were only required because the applicant breached initial planning permission by installing a flue design which was different from the one in the plans submitted. Following complaints from residents, the council made allowances for the initial breach by imposing mitigation measures, only for the applicant to again breach the mitigating conditions by deciding on and implementing a different approach to mitigation. So here we are 2 years later, with residents still having to live with the consequences and fight to have their voices heard. The submissions from residents address a range of concerns, as you can see from the report from officers. Only light pollution has been excluded from the consideration here. One of the issues relates to the look of the flue. The report states that this was addressed in the previous report. However, since then, the measures taken by the applicant have changed the look of the flue. Shouldn't this again be assessed to ensure that it is not out of keeping for its location? Shouldn't the heritage team be asked to take a view on the appearance of the flue, given that it is in a conservation area? The next issue is that of noise. As you see here, a report has been carried out to assess the impact of the noise of the flue on residents. While the noise assessment was carried out by a professional, the conditions under which it was carried out do not address the concerns of the residents. The location chosen was not the properties of those who had raised concerns, nor was the time of day reflective of when they are experiencing their issues. It feels as though a box has been ticked rather than the issues addressed. Residents had been quite clear as to when and how the noise affected them, but their comments were not taken into account when the assessment was carried out. There is an agreement that the flue should be silent after the restaurant closes, but the cleaning process kicks in once it is closed, and this disturbs residents' sleep. In their submissions, the residents offer suggestions for measures which might help reduce the noise pollution, such as turning the flue off earlier and running the cleaning process in the morning rather than overnight, so that it does not disturb sleep. Good neighbourliness is important for our businesses and residents. Is the business prepared to adapt their working practice to help mitigate their impact, even if this is not enforceable by the council? Could they run the cleaning process in the morning? The third issue I want to draw your attention to is the soot. CCC Environmental Health have only considered the impact of noise. The soot is not addressed at all. Why has there been no assessment of the polluting impact of the flue? Surely this is an environmental health issue. What is in the soot? What is the impact of it being present so close to residential properties? What are the health implications of inhaling it? Surely this is a matter for consideration by an environmental health team. I'm in agreement with one of the residents, Mrs. Newman, when she says in her submission, the proof of the pudding of the measures is in the lived experience of the residents affected. The evidence you have before you does not appear to me to directly address the issues they are raising. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to have a brief word before I go on to suggest how we might handle this. Just bear with me for 1 minute. I'd like to move to suggest that we attempt to get this right this time. And I just want to comment, so particularly for our speakers, that one of the difficulties we've got is we've already approved this in relation to everything except the noise mitigation and the colour of the flue. So I think we've got a difficulty. And also I just want to clarify, speakers have commented they'd be happy to answer questions, but unfortunately the process of this committee means that we can't go back to ask you questions. That doesn't happen. You get your rights to speak, and I think you've given some quite clear messages, but there are constraints, and I just wanted to clarify that before I went ahead. So what I would like to suggest is that, broadly speaking, we've got the issue on our hands that we were left with from the last committee. We've got a report in front of us that clarifies that alternative mitigation measures were put in place and a noise assessment. And you've heard, obviously, people's view of that, but you've also heard what the noise assessment said. So I do think we should grant planning permission, subject to safeguarding conditions. However, I think we should improve on the conditions. So what I want to suggest is subject to safeguarding conditions, but accept what Simon Thomas has said, and that we should reimpose the condition of the colour of the flue, whether we go for black or grey, depending on what you think of the picture. That's a moot point for people to comment on. We haven't got open up to us the issue of soot, because that's been dealt with in previous reports. And obviously you've heard what people have said. So do I have a seconder on proceeding to vote to grant, subject to conditions, some of which we may add to? And I haven't completely made up my mind on this. I'm open to the discussion, but I think we should move to get this right this time. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Auld, thank you very much. So please could I open this up for debate and discussion? Hopefully not going over some of the things that we actually can't change today. Thank you very much. Councillor Naomi Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'm disappointed we're here talking about this when it should have been resolved when we had the meeting in January, but it's not, and something different's been done. It does appear that the noise reduction seems to have been solved, but there are other things here. In the report, it says that they have to stop the the fans have to be silent at 11 o'clock was one of the conditions. I've seen, I can't quite find it again, but it is one of the conditions on this. But the residents are obviously saying it goes on much later than that. So that's a problem. I mean, the fact that they've done nothing about the colour of the flue, we were, told, the applicant, said that they would get all this work done, but it seems they've just gone off and done something completely different. And I just don't think it's good enough, to be honest. And I'm quite disappointed that the amount of time we spent on this previously, that we are being dragged back here to discuss it because the applicant has decided they want to do something completely different. Thank you, Chair.
I think we could ask Simon Thomas if changes to conditions about the length of time this goes on and the noise could be, I mean, what I'm worried about is putting it off for that rather than being clear about what conditions we can impose now. But I think we should explore the point. Simon, I think...
I'll quickly check the original planning.
We're having a look at the original conditions to see whether they are good enough for that on that one. I find it quite difficult to share. Simon's going to look it up for me and look through. So, Councillor Thomas.
Well, I'm agreeing that we are put in this position again because when we discussed it last time, and forgive me, I don't remember 100% because we have quite a lot of meetings, we accepted as a condition, and I can't remember how I voted for it or for against, but that was a compromise from what was there to do all this noise. And I think I do recall that I was one of the councillors that requested this come back to committee, or can we call this back to committee if these conditions aren't put in position? So, and I think, if I recall, I kind of got laughed at, I believe, not intentionally, that we can't keep bringing this back. But here we are again with and it kind of falls down to the fact that we're not doing enough enforcement. This flue should never have been put up. So because the applicants put a flue up, we're then put in a position to vote on a committee to accept something that's there. Yet we're not happy about it because it's put in there, it becomes a compromise. But it should never have been in there in the first place if enforcement had been doing their job. And I know we're going round and round what we've said before, but it comes back to now we're doing another compromise on another compromise. One of the questions is, can I please ask what time the noise survey was done? Because the time of day is quite critical, because it gets quieter after 9, 10 o'clock at night. And if the flue's going then, it resonates through the whole thing. And I've had noise disturbance where I live, and we've had music playing, and it's almost like a psychological torture. And if you're a resident living there, it's not fair to the people to have to put up with this. And as a planning committee, we're in this whole compromise scenario where we have to accept it because the developer's done something wrong. Oh dear, let's work with the developer, put this forward. Actually, we should be saying, no, this all wants ripping out, let's start again. Because actually, you haven't done what you're meant to have done 2 years ago. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to be clear, we did in 2021, we granted permission for the flue. Now, what happened is they built a different flue, and that's why we're here. So the question is that different flue still as effective as the original flue? And the assessment that our acoustic engineer has made is that it is. So although it's been frustrating because it's taken a lot of time, and they haven't done what they originally said they were going to do, the position we've got to now is we have a flu that is as effective as the original flu. And I think just also to point out, because I think the one of the speakers mentioned, I think on the 30th of September, the flu was run overnight. November, sorry. We can certainly look at that and ask the business why that was the case. But there is a condition on the original planning permission which says the extraction system should not be used between 11 p.m. and 9 a.m. the following day. So there is a clear condition there. Now we need to approach the business owner and say, look, are you complying with this condition? Because that would be then an enforcement question.
Sorry, Chair, I did ask what time it was. The actual meter reading was taken. And on the other one, I'm on it, sorry, Chair. I take it we don't have any regulations to the cleaning cycle. Thank you.
I think the issue to be explained about noise levels is it's about the level of noise, not the timing. But I'll ask Simon again to come back on that one. We have got other speakers, but let's deal with this one first.
Yes, well, the report looked at the background levels, so it looked at the noise from the flu against the background levels, and that was where the assessment was made. So it wouldn't be made just at one point in the day. It would have looked at the overall profile of background levels. I think just the other thing to say, Chair, is that if we grant this permission, if the flu is used at different times, or it say, for example, it became louder if something was removed, for example, then the Environmental Protection Act does apply. So the statutory nuisance provisions do apply, which would allow us to take action if that were to occur. So it's not a question of, you grant a permission and then there's no other possible action. There is, if there were a problem arising in the future.
Thank
Chair,
you.
can I come back on that? Just sorry, to be a real pedantic. Sorry, who would enforce that? Sorry, Chair. Yeah.
Well, it's the environmental health team of the council that would enforce that.
Thank you.
It's Councillor Castle next.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies. So in simple terms, I've had quite a few enforcement cases that Simon Thomas will be aware of. Here today we're dealing with, just to make the gallery aware, obviously the enforcement process, the first stage is to reapply for application. I've got some horrendous environmental disasters in my ward, and the first stage of enforcement is full planning permission. That's been and gone. So I think the crux of it is, does this flu meet the conditions that were agreed on previously? The report says it does. I know we may want to change the conditions, and I understand residents' concerns. I think to make them aware publicly is that then falls under other jurisdiction. If it's running late at night, if there's soot that's impacting their properties, there's other instigations, and I think that's what's hard. It's that crossover that people are seeing, thinking that we can make a decision on those things, but we're not. Is the flu doing what it does? And I'm inclined that when I was reading the documents, we're being told, maybe contrary to residents, but that it's doing what it should do. Although I agree with Councillor Naomi Smith that, and the same with all councillors agree, it's disappointing that we end up in this situation every time, but that is the process laid out nationally. I've got 4 or 5 cases ongoing that are similar, and that's where we find ourselves. So we have to deal with that tonight, unfortunately. So I'm inclined to agree with you, Chair, with what you've proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Prentice.
I just wanted to support comments made by Councillor Smith and Councillor Thomas. I think it's insulting to this committee that we're still here discussing this, and it's not a good use of council time, whether that's this committee's time or whether it's officers' time, to be dealing with issues at this location yet again. I wasn't clear on whether it was possible to do some noise monitoring at the times that our public speakers have suggested. They are the key times here. They're the key moments at which the noise is especially intrusive, I recognise that they are not sort of normal working hours necessarily, but it is quite important that we get a true, scientific and accurate picture, or should I say, a recording of the noise, because it's so important that we get this right in a sensitive area where it's. I've not even mentioned the conservation area, and whether it's grey or black is almost not irrelevant, but it's the noise issue would be worrying me the most if I was a local resident in this area. And I'd also be worried about the any sort of contaminants and carbon pollution emitting from the flue. So I think it's absolutely essential that we get this right. And I think that'll be all I want to say. Thank you.
Sorry, we're slightly beset by tech problems here because our printer wasn't working and we're using one computer. So excuse us just a minute, checking on something. What we want to explain from the point of view of the chair and planning is that we have commissioned a report. That report's on the portal. That's the report we're all talking about. So, sorry, I want us to have a look. I'm asking Simon Thomas from Planning to have a look at the report, which we commissioned to test the report of the applicants. And just need to tell you that we've commissioned this report. So this is an independent report that we've asked for to tell us about the levels of noise. So Simon's going to explain a bit of the detail about that to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, what happened? The applicant submitted a report with a noise assessment, and we then instructed a well-established specialist company, Bureau Veritas. They work on a national level to review that report. And effectively, the question we asked is, will the flue, as designed, will it have an adverse effect on the neighbours' living conditions or not? That was the question. And the answer, the conclusion that Bureau Veritas drew was that it wouldn't have an impact. The measures that have been put in place would be sufficient to remove that unacceptable impact on neighbours, and they assessed it against the British standards when they were doing that work.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of issues. I just request that you clarify. You said that the soot issue was dealt with previously, and I'd just like clarification on how that issue has been dealt with previously. And the second point is on the noise survey and the timing and location of that. And judging from what we've heard from our public speakers, it seems that, and I tend to agree with them, that the most egregious noise is likely to happen at night when the background levels of noise are low. So unless the Bureau Veritas's survey was undertaken at night and in the locations where local residents say they are being disturbed. I don't think it's that valuable. I think that if they haven't tested the noise environment at night and they haven't tested it in the locations where the disturbance is being experienced, then they should go back and do that again, so that we can actually have an impartial and independent assessment of exactly what's happening. Thank you.
I think that maybe people need to be opening up the reports themselves and checking if you're not happy with what was said in the previous report, because because what you're saying is, well, look, we were all there when we made that decision earlier this year, and the issue of soot and particles was brought up, and we didn't raise it as an issue. So the report is in here, it's in the pack, and you can see that we didn't. We had all the same points that were made, and we didn't. So we must have looked at the evidence then. That's what I was trying to explain at the beginning. We could try and go over all that report, but this will take us, we'll have to now look it up and find it. You've got things in front of you as well. So please, would people be prepared to check, have a look for some of your own queries while we're checking the air quality report, the sound quality report.
My computer's not working properly.
Oh no,
so
and
I
I'm
can't access it.
well, okay. Councillor, hang on a minute. So wait a minute. Let's have Councillor Mellish first, and then David, I'll come back to you.
Just for some clarification, please, Chair, that in terms of noise, we've been talking about the flue system, but we've heard tonight, the issues around the cleansing system or the washing system is perhaps not going to cause more problems than perhaps if the restrictions be imposed in this report are upon the flue. So, but it seems that we're not allowed to discuss the wash system, from what Simon was saying earlier. That somehow, as this is an issue that's come up tonight, that's out of our remit.
It's not really about allowed, it's just that we've got a variation of a particular recommendation that we made on the table. That is what we're talking about, a variation. I did suggest we may want to look at whether additional conditions can be imposed, but we found out there is a noise condition, and it's 11 o'clock at night till 9 in the morning. We found that. We believe that we've appointed independent people to do the acoustic report, and they have reported on that, and we've used that in this up-to-date report. That's where we are so far. Okay.
In terms of that's fine, and I saw that all that in the report. But the report, I suppose, that's how we focused it. I suppose at our last meeting was on the flue. Now we have the issue of the washing system, and which should be part of that noise assessment. Because from what we heard tonight, that can go on through the night as well, and that's one of the part of the problems it causes to the residents.
Simon's just going to add another couple of comments. We've just been looking at the report. You will see in the report, if this is something that particularly concerns you and you've got a computer that's working at the minute, you can look it up on the portal now and check with us. And that doesn't mean at least it's more than one eye going over it. But this is obviously, done in the way that normally they would do reports. And Simon's just going to add a few comments.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, these reports are done in accordance with the British standards. So the acoustic consultant who did the work for the applicant would have done it in accordance with those standards, as did Bureau Veritas, who did the review work for us. The testing happened in March. It was in the day, but it was when the system was running. So the important thing was to test the noise coming out of the system. The issue of background levels, obviously at night time, so after 11, then background levels drop because there's less activity, less pubs and restaurants and activity within the street. And that's why the condition was recommended, which requires the flue not to be used between 11 p.m. and then 9 a.m. in the morning. And it was specifically to address that point about the reduced background levels. So that's where we got to when we granted the original planning permission, and the report you considered in January would included the recommendations for fitting attenuation equipment to the flue. And as I say, we're here now because a different mitigation package was used. But then, as I say, that has now been assessed by our Bureau Veritas, and they say that the effect of the mitigation is as it would have been with the previous proposed mitigation. So there's no impact in noise terms that would justify refusing the planning permission.
So where we are is that we consider that the report, from the point of view of planning, we consider that the report is satisfactory and does tell us what we need to know. That's what we get from these people. That's what we require. And it's an independent report and it isn't one of the applicants. So that's the situation that we're in with that. Councillor Thomas, and then I think we've got Councillor Smith and Councillor Bothwell.
We're putting this situation again with a damage limitation package or whatever you want to call it. I can't remember what mitigations we put in January. That's almost a year ago. If you're asking me to look at a report that was reported somewhere on the system, you're asking me to look back to reference something tonight on a laptop. Is that what you're asking me to do? To read a report that was in January?
The report that we've got here has our entire has the minutes of the meeting in January on it. So it's what we've got in front of us.
Because obviously what my point is about coming back to the CERT, although we put mitigations in for the CERT, if the residents are saying they've still got an issue with the CERT, then your mitigations, have they?
What we're checking from this point of view is the decision notice, which would have reflected the recommendations of the committee prior, so one before. We're trying to check that for you so that we can see what, and we've done that regarding the noise. So the noise issue has got as is conditioned. I think we're all clear about that now. That's there, and that can be enforced. This committee can't do more than that. And I think that Councillor Castle explained that properly. the reason I was saying we are limited in what we can do is because we have already passed this, except for these issues. Yes.
Let's come back to, sorry, you haven't really answered my question that was about the soot. Because obviously if we put in a mitigation, is
We're just
whatever,
looking-
whatever
well, I
mitigation we put in now isn't working because obviously the residents are still getting problems with the soot. So although you're saying it's solved, it isn't solved if there's still an issue with it.
Sorry. What I said to that was that Simon is looking through the original conditions to see whether we conditioned anything about soot. And if we didn't, it's because we didn't think it was a problem. So that's where we are with that. And I'm just looking it up now. So hold
Okay.
on.
Yeah,
Hold on.
I get that, but
Let's get the other
no,
questions.
but I need to come back on that because obviously I get that, but you did dismiss it earlier and saying we've already passed it as a thing. So you're trying to say that we've agreed that, but now you're looking at a report to whether we have agreed it. So actually what you...
Because you are saying that you want to know what we did before, we're trying our best to find it. But no, let's have a look.
Yeah, well, there's
Just a second.
Who's vice chairman? Sorry.
The reason I was saying what I was saying, to explain yet again, although I do feel I've said it twice, is that when we have already dealt with some of these matters and we have a variation on certain conditions, that is all today we're making a decision about. Honestly, that is all. However, we will explain to you what the condition was that relates to particles, and we can read it to you and see what we said previously. But as I say, we are, we're going back over it, but we can't change that. That is what it is. Before we answer, if there are more questions, let's get them all at once.
Just in terms,
Councillor Smith, Councillor Bothwell, and then back to you, Councillor Mellish.
Okay, I'm not clear because it says that one of the draft conditions that we approved last time was the extraction system used at the site shall not be in operation at any point between the hours of 11 p.m. and 9 a.m. I'm not clear what the washing system is. Is it a washing system within the extraction fan? So if that's the case, that should be part of that condition. Is it something else? It should then be conditioned as well, because the washing system we've been told makes a noise. So if that's going on at midnight or 1 a.m., I don't know is it a cleaning system within the flue or what? I don't know how it works. That's my question. Oh, some clarification. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Old, I think other people. are
Thank
not.
you, Chair. Can I just reinforce what you've been saying and perhaps suggest that we don't go into detail about looking for past reports about soot? It strikes me that what we're being asked to do, and with all due sympathy to the members of the public who are speaking, we're being asked to make decisions on very, very narrow grounds. Just the issue about the noise from the flue and the colour that it's painted. And that strikes me that it's not an opportunity to relitigate the whole of the process that we've been through up till now. It's just to decide on those two issues. And so we ought to stick to that and not get distracted by getting involved with other issues that we've discussed previously in this place at least once or twice before. Thank you.
we can read you the paragraph about particulates, since we have looked it up now, because of the questions. Simon, you've got the screen in front of you.
Yeah, so the original condition, condition 3 in 2021, talked about, required the ventilation system to include a 3-stage filtration system, i.e. grease filters, pre-filters and activated carbon filters, or an alternative form of odour control such as UV ESP, the technical specification of the fan, noise levels, etc., and location details, including details of inline silencers, details of the anti-vibration mounts and flexible couplings, and details of fittings had to be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. And then the system should be installed in that way. Now, obviously, it wasn't. The system was installed differently, and that's what we're now considering.
The system of cleaning being stored.
It doesn't talk about cleaning, I don't think.
I think we should leave it there. Can I just say that going back to the point about the fan afterwards, what it actually says is the extraction system used at the site shall not be in operation between 2300 hours and 900 hours. So it seems to me it covers both. And this is an issue for, it is worth going back to the decision notice, but I think that where it comes to the particulates, we've covered it off with the system requirements. That's what we've done with that. So now we have actually answered both questions by going back to the decision notice. So can we now focus on what we're dealing with, as Councillor Old said, and as I was hoping we would be able to do, having satisfied those points as far as we possibly can today, which is that we have a report that does say, it's a report we commission, it's an independent report that does say that the sound limits are acceptable. And it may be that there are lots of questions and so on, but that is a professional report. We are not more technical than them. And if you look in that report now, we've just been having a look at it, it's got a lot of technical specification in. I don't know whether, we're not experts. We have to accept the report. It's our report because it, is telling us that information. We have satisfied ourselves on the extraction fan being part of the system, and it's the system that has to be turned off at 2300 hours. And we've satisfied ourselves that it is environmental health that should be dealing with all of that. So obviously, there are further conditions we could consider, but I think those were the issues we were really talking about. And the final one is whether we require the flue to be painted, and I think we should, because I think it looks strange like that. And we did require black last time, and I'd be very happy to stick with black, and they can paint the grey black, and it can all be black. I mean, it's more out, the visibility will be better. So that's where we are. I know it leaves a lot of questions answered about enforcement and what the owners are doing and so on and so forth. But I'm very sorry for everybody in the room who's not happy about that, but we can't do anything about that. That is not part of the planning condition. We put the conditions in and then they have to be taken forward through reports to environmental team. So, Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Chair. I can find a noise impact assessment produced by MRL Acoustics, who are acting on behalf of Alaturka, but I can't find the report by Bureau Veritas on the planning portal, so I'm not sure where that is. But I can't see it.
If you interpret the data differently, that's your opinion.
The internal report is what we were talking about. So you are right, it's not on the portal. So Simon's just going to explain to you what that has done.
Yeah. So the environmental health manager instructed Bureau Veritas to review the report submitted by the applicant in order to inform her and give her the technical assessment of the matter, so she could then in turn advise the planning officer. It's a little bit contrived, but it will, well, not contrived, but a bit convoluted, I think is the word. Yeah. But the point is that it's a report that was informing the environmental health manager, who then, with that information, was able to confirm that there were no objections from the environmental health team to the report submitted and the proposals submitted by the applicant.
Well, we were told earlier on that we should be looking in our laptops to see what was in that report.
I think that I got that wrong. It's the MRL one that was in there, and it's the MRL one that was assessed by Bureau Veritas.
Right. I did have another question.
But I'm glad you've looked at the MRL one, because at least you can see that the technical specification is all there.
Well, I haven't had time to read it yet. It's quite a number of pages. A question on the colour. I think dark grey looks better and is less intrusive and impactful, so I would be happy for them to paint the missing bit dark grey rather than paint the whole thing black.
Is that a proposal, Keith? I mean, Councillor Bothwell.
Yes, I propose that's put as a condition that they can paint it dark grey or paint the whole
Do I
thing
have a
black.
seconder for that condition? Councillor Thomas?
Can I just confirm what you just said? So are you saying that we've had a report sent in by the applicant and one of our officers have read that report and agreed with the report?
As we said, it is a bit convoluted. We got an independent assessment. As I said earlier, what I got wrong was that independent assessment isn't on the portal, because the independent assessment goes to our environmental officer, and our environmental officer tells planning whether or not that assessment is right or not, or technically correct. It's very technical. And that's where we've got to with that.
Yeah, but did our department, for want of a better word, I'm a bit confused, go out and do an assessment of the noise assessment, or did she just read the report and agree with the report?
I think I just answered that, but I will try again.
Okay.
As Simon said, it is a bit convoluted.
What does
So-
convoluted mean?
Complicated. It means it's going round and round a bit. So our environmental officer, environment team, head of the environment team officer, environmental health officer, commissioned Bureau Veritas, as Simon said earlier, to check the technical report that you all saw, well, you saw if you looked at the background papers, MRL, and assessed it as technically correct. As I said earlier, I couldn't assess it as technically correct. We are dependent on our independent assessment of that. Is that okay now?
Yeah, but she hasn't gone out and done an assessment. So she hasn't gone with a machine and checked the decibels to confirm that the report's correct. She's just read the report and said, yes, I agree with the report and everything in it is correct.
No, David, neither of those things. I'll try
Okay.
again. She has got Bureau Veritas, an independent assessor, as I commented earlier. What I mistook was that the Bureau Veritas report doesn't appear on the portal. I didn't know that. I thought it did, because we were looking through the portal, and that's where I thought we were looking at it. It does an assessment of the technical correctness of the MRL report, which is the big background document that we were all talking about earlier.
Sorry to be a pain, but this is quite important. I thought at the beginning of the meeting that you mentioned that the acoustic report was done by the applicant.
Can I just refer you, David, because we do need to move on. Consultation, paragraph 7, page 10 of our report today. That's where it says what I've just said, probably more straightforwardly. Paragraph 7, page 10. And do we have a seconder for grey rather than black?
It's not a second. It's not seconding. I prefer black.
Okay,
And the reason I prefer black is because black would weather and fade anyway. So I'm not particularly
Okay,
bothered
thank
about
you.
grey.
I'm inclined to go with black as I suggested it, and there's some support. And we haven't got a quick seconder for grey. Peter, sorry. As my seconder, are you happy with that? Now, I'd like to just go to the vote because actually I think that we have teased out as much as we possibly can. And I'm glad that we have discussed most of the issues. And, you know, it is very difficult for everybody that it is a bit complicated, this case. But, you know, there are good reasons why these things come back, and it's because they are complicated. So I would like to put it to the vote that we accept the officer's report. Got to go back to my phone. Sorry, everybody. Accept the officer's report to grant planning permission subject to safeguarding conditions set out the report at Annex 1. And I've got a seconder, Councillor Old, and Pippa, can we now run the vote? Thank you very much. A proposal to grant is a proposal 4.
And that's carried, Chair. We've got 6 for, 1 against, 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you understood that final vote. Thank you very much. So we now move on. To item 6, application number CA 2401205, land adjacent to Hawthorne Cottage, Hawthorne Corner, Herne Bay. Can I ask Simon Thomas to introduce the report? Yes, they're coming in. We'll wait 1 minute. It'll take him a minute or two to get... Yeah, we can wait. We can wait for everybody. Yes, let's please move on. I've got to the point where I've asked Simon to introduce the report on the next case, Hawthorne Cottage. So let's go ahead. Simon, are you up?
Yep, thanks. Thanks, Pippa. Okay, so this is an application for...
Please could people be quiet and listen? Thank you.
This is an application for a new dwelling on the site, which is edge red on the plan, in the centre of the plan. It's rural location, but it's very close. There's a little hamlet nearby, as you can see at the bottom left-hand corner of the picture, and also you've got the wastewater treatment works to the north, but also the Hillborough development is then beyond the wastewater treatment works. So it's an area of quite a bit of change, but it is in a rural location. So this is the site. The listed cottages are on the left. The proposed dwelling would go sort of quite centrally within this photograph, adjacent to the bund, which you can see along the right-hand side. This is a view from where the proposed building would go to the listed cottages. So you can see it's some distance away from those listed cottages. And this is really the reason we've got this application here, because it is a departure from the plan. It's outside the settlement. As I said, the context is quite a changing environment. But actually, the main reason is that the site to the right-hand side was granted permission on appeal, where the inspector effectively set the precedent in that particular instance, saying that he felt that the site was not isolated, and because of its association with other properties and the hamlet and its proximity to the Herne Bay, and having regard obviously to the Hillborough development, that it wasn't isolated and therefore granted permission. So we followed up then with granting permission for a new dwelling on the right-hand side, and now this is the third application which has come in. So what we're saying in the report is that because that precedent was effectively set, that establishment of this area as potential for some development, then so an inspector granted it, and then we subsequently granted permission as a committee for a second dwelling, that it's then reasonable to grant permission for a third dwelling in this location. So just to give you an idea, this is what the building would look like, so fairly standard. And then there'd be a detached garage just to the front of the building. Sorry, it's disappeared.
I think it's a self-build as well.
And it's a self-build as well, which is significant in a number of ways, but including that there's no biodiversity net gain requirement for self-build properties, and that will be we'll condition and ensure that the property is a self-build, and as a single dwelling they often would be, but we'll ensure it is through a legal agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We do have the applicant here to speak, but if the committee does not want to debate this, we could move straight to me recommending a vote. Do you want to debate this?
I have a few questions, but I would like to hear the developer. If we've got 3 minutes, I've been sitting here for a lot longer than that, so 3 minutes I think we can spare. Thank you, Chair.
I didn't use the mic. Michael Todd, please come forward to speak. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Michael Todd and I'm the applicant for the project. I was going to recommend that it was subject to approval, and we're very cold, and I would say let's leave it there and I'll leave you all to it, but I will read out what I have here. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak and support on the application for a single self-build dwelling on the site adjacent to Hawthorne Cottage. The project designed and provides sustainability high quality home while addressing key challenges in the area. Allow me to highlight the primary benefits. The design reflecting local character. The dwelling has been thoroughly designed with thoughtfully designed with the black timber cladding and Kent peg tiles to reflect the rural vernacular of the area. It complements the surrounding buildings and enhances the visual appeal of the area. The proposed development will significantly enhance the setting of the Grade 2 listed dwelling of Hawthorne Cottage. Currently, the site is burdened with unsightly soil heaps that detract from the area's historic character. Our plan includes clearing these heaps, re-landscaping and introducing soft greenery, which will restore and elevate the heritage value of the location. Environmental and community enhancements. This project is re-establish the public right-of-way, improving access and connectivity for local residents. Additionally, we've ensured the project aligns with the environmental standards with no significant impact on local ecology or biodiversity. Importantly, the site is outside the Stop Marsh Nutrition Neutrality catchment, ensuring that no constraints in this regard. Contributing to local housing needs. The proposal will also contribute to much needed housing supply in the district. It represents an opportunity for sustainability, well-designed growth and a location close to existing developments, ensuring that it's not isolated and integrates with the community. In summary, the proposal embodies the principles of sustainability development outlined in the National Planning Policy Framework. It offers clear benefits to the community and environment and historic character of the area while addressing local housing needs. I kindly ask for your support in the approval and application so we can bring the benefits to fruition. I thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. I would like to suggest to support the officer's recommendation, section 101 grants, subject to legal agreement and safeguarding conditions. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Ms. Smith.
We had a condition.
Second, yeah.
Contaminated land assessment. So a technical condition, so they have to look at, do a desktop study to see if there's any contaminated land.
I'm being advised that we ought to add a condition for a contaminated land assessment that apparently it isn't in the report, but probably should have been. But I think that's not a problem for us, is it? So I will propose that condition as part of the Section 101 grant, and if Councillor Smith agrees, we'll go ahead on that basis. Can I open this up for discussion? Councillor Stockley, you indicated, and Councillor Bothwell, you've got questions. Ian Stockley first.
Thank you very much, Chair. I really wanted to hear the developer stroke builder explain their thoughts on it, and I'm grateful for that. Previously, the other developments on this site have been particularly well endowed with green credentials, such as, I believe, heat pumps and solar panels. I was wondering whether this will follow suit to the same degree. I imagine so. Right. The loop system, bless him. Yes, has been.
I think if we haven't seen it in the report, and because the office is on leave now, the answer is we haven't got that information.
I assume it'll obviously it's going to be to current building regulations as a minimum.
We're not allowed to accept question and answers.
Ignore everything I've said. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Chair. Just echoing Councillor Stockley's question, I can't see any mention of energy use, energy strategy, net zero standards, insulation levels, anything like that. And given that we are in a climate emergency, I would request that a condition is put on the application requesting at least an energy strategy with a recommendation to achieve net zero. Thank you.
I think where we are with all of this is that because we can't require net zero, even if we got an energy strategy, we couldn't specify what it would be. So it would just be whatever they've got planned. I just think we're in a situation here with this where, you know, the self-bid in and of itself is a good thing, but it is just a traditional building.
But it doesn't mean it can't be extremely energy efficient. And I think at least we have previously asked for an energy strategy to be included as a condition on previous applications. So taking this building, for example, with the temperatures outside of about 6 degrees, with a net zero building, you wouldn't need any heating on. So we'd be perfectly comfortable.
We've just got to wait for our new local plan to come in, and then we can start talking about requiring what we've got as conditions. But actually, just sitting here at the moment, we can't require net zero.
No, I'm not saying that we can require that, but we can ask for an energy strategy, and we have previously put it on as a condition with planning applications. So at least that we're getting applicants to think about how much energy their buildings are using.
I can't remember the exact case, but I think there were ones where people were offering to do net zero and didn't mind it being conditioned, but that's a different category. Simon's got a solution.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think, as Councillor Stockley said, the building regulations, whatever the current building regulations are at the time, the applicant will have to comply with, and obviously they're becoming stricter as time goes by. But we can also put an informative on the planning permission saying that the committee would like the applicant to consider all reasonable options for achieving low energy. So we can make that the desire of the planning committee clear.
Councillor Smith.
I note on the report there's no mention of public transport at all on this report about, I'm guessing there isn't any. It's because of where it is. Yeah. Okay. So it must be quite a good distance to any public transport. Okay, that's quite a schlep, isn't it? Thank you.
Are there any other comments? In which case, please could I move to the vote, which is to Section 101 grant, subject to legal agreement and safeguarding conditions with the informative as outlined about energy strategy, and Councillor Smith is the seconder. Pippa, please could you run the vote? A vote to approve is a vote for, or vote for is vote to approve. Thank you.
And that's carried, Chair, all in favour.
And thank you very much, everybody. I just open this. Item 7 is Planning Appeals Report, pages 42 to 43. Simon Thomas hasn't got anything to add. Any question on, I think it was one case, wasn't it? No. Then we can note by general assent, please, if you're happy with that. Everybody, please. General assent, thank you. We haven't got any urgent business to be dealt with in public, and we haven't got any other business which falls under exempt provisions. And the next meeting is on the 7th of January 2025. And because that clock's never right, I'm not going to say what time we've ended the meeting. I get it wrong, I read it and it's about right today. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.